The first time I saw the house, I laughed. It was a Sunday, mid-October, and I was driving back from a failed attempt to buy a pumpkin in the next town over. Every patch on the coast was either a front for a haunted corn maze or sold out by noon. I took a wrong turn down a road my GPS insisted didn't exist, a narrow strip of asphalt that was more moss than pavement, and there it was. Not a shack, not a ruin, but a pristine, two-story Victorian with a fresh coat of pale yellow paint and white trim so bright it hurt my eyes. In the middle of a dense, dripping pine forest, 10 miles from the nearest gas station, sat the most immaculate house I had ever seen. The sign out front was a simple wooden plank, hand-painted with elegant black lettering, tour by appointment. Inquire within. I pulled over. My car idled, engine ticking like a nervous heartbeat. The air smelled of wet earth and pine resin, a sharp, clean scent that felt wrong in its perfection. No birdsong, no wind. The house just sat there, basking in a shaft of pale light that seemed to originate from nowhere. I don't know why I did it. I was a skeptic. I wrote a blog about local history, debunking ghost stories and exposing folklore for the tourist traps they were. My whole online persona was built on being the guy who proved the old mill wasn't haunted, that the crying cave was just a geological echo. I was the boring, rational counterpoint to all the clickbait. But that house on that forgotten road was the most interesting thing I'd seen in years. I got out of the car. The front door was slightly ajar. A sliver of warm, golden light spilled from the crack, looking like a cut in the fabric of the dim day. I pushed it open, expecting a creak, some cinematic groan of protest. There was none. It swung inward on silent old hinges. The foyer smelled of lemon polish and old paper. A grandfather clock, its face a deep mahogany, ticked loudly against the silence. To my left, a parlor filled with antique furniture that looked dust-free and recently arranged. To my right, a hallway leading to a kitchen. And directly ahead, a grand staircase curving up into the gloom of the second floor. There was a book on a small table by the entrance. It was a guest book bound in cracked black leather. The pages were cream-colored and thick. I flipped it open. The first page was dated October 14, 1932. Names, dates, and a comments column. Every entry had a comment. "Beautiful home, so calming," read one. "The garden is spectacular this time of year," read another. They were all like that. Pleasant, normal, boring. The dates ran continuously. There was no gap between the years. Page after page, month after month. 1932, 1933, all the way to the 1980s, and then the 90s, the 2000s, and even this current year. There were hundreds of signatures. I flipped to the most recent page. The last entry was dated 3 days ago. The signature was a flourish of blue ink. The comment said, "I've never felt so at peace. I cannot wait to return." A chill that had nothing to do with the temperature traced a finger down my spine. I heard a sound from upstairs. A soft, rhythmic creaking, like a rocking chair on a wooden floor. I should have left. Every instinct, the ones I'd spent years ignoring in favor of logic, screamed at me to walk out the door, get in my car, and forget this place. But curiosity is a hungry parasite. I put my foot on the first step of the staircase. The wood felt warm through the soles of my shoes. The upstairs hallway was darker, the air heavier. The creaking was coming from the last door on the left. It was slightly open, and I could see the source of the sound, an old rocking chair moving on its own, gently, as if pushed by an invisible hand. I stood in the doorway, heart hammering against my ribs. The room itself was empty save for the chair and a single photograph on the wall. It was a framed, black-and-white image of the house, taken from the road. In the photo, a man stood in front of the porch. He was smiling, but his eyes looked like dark pits devoid of detail. That's when I noticed the small plaque under the photograph. It read, "The Caretaker." Something changed in the air. The pressure dropped and my ears popped. The rocking chair stopped. The silence that followed was absolute. It wasn't quiet. It was a vacuum, swallowing all sound. I couldn't even hear my own breathing. I turned to run, and that's when I saw the door was closed. It hadn't made a sound. The house had been silent before, but it was the silence of stillness. Now it was the silence of a predator holding its breath. I was trapped. I ran to the window, fumbling with the lock. It was painted shut. I slammed my shoulder against the glass, but it didn't even shake. I looked out, and the forest was gone. Where the pines had been, there was only a flat, featureless gray void. The sky, the trees, the road, all erased. The outside world was gone. I turned around, back to the hallway. The photograph of the caretaker was off the wall. It was lying face down on the floor. My hands trembled as I picked it up and turned it over. The image hadn't changed. It was still the house, still the man with the pit eyes. But now the man was no longer alone. Standing next to him a few feet from the porch was a figure in a modern green jacket. My jacket, and my face looking back at the camera with wide, terrified eyes. I dropped the photograph like it was red hot. I stumbled back into the room with the rocking chair. The chair was rocking again, faster now, a frantic, chattering rhythm against the floorboards. The plaque was gone from the wall. In its place was a brand new one, gleaming brass. It read, "The Visitor." The next few hours were a blur of attempts to escape. I tried the windows on every floor. I tried the doors. I even considered breaking the grandfather clock, but something told me that would be a very bad idea. The house seemed to have a logic of its own, a labyrinthine quality that shifted. I would walk down the upstairs hallway and end up at the front door, only to open it and find the void. Eventually, I gave in to exhaustion. I sat on the bottom step of the staircase, hugging my knees, watching the last rays of the non-existent sun fade from the windows. The house didn't get dark, though. The golden light just seemed to come from the walls themselves. The grandfather clock struck midnight. I had been in the house for what felt like 9 hours, but the hands on the clock hadn't moved more than a few minutes. Then I heard it, a key turning in the lock of the front door. The door swung open and a woman walked in. She was in her 50s, wearing a sensible beige raincoat, holding an umbrella that was perfectly dry. She smiled at me as if she'd been expecting me. "Oh, a new guest," she said, her voice warm and cheerful. "You must be the one staying in the Rose room. How do you find it?" I stared at her, speechless. She walked over to the guest book and opened it to the current page. She scribbled something, then turned the book to face me, pointing at the blank line below the last entry. There was a pen in her hand, extended toward me. "Don't be shy," she said. "We like to keep track of everyone who visits. It's part of the charm." I looked at the book. Her entry, fresh in blue ink, read, "A lovely evening. The new guest seems nice. I look forward to my next stay." She was a visitor, just like me. I took the pen. My hand was shaking so badly I could barely hold it. I looked at the photograph on the wall behind her, the one of me and the caretaker. The man with the pit eyes was gone. Now it was just me, standing alone in front of the house, a look of dawning horror on my face. The woman followed my gaze. "Ah, you've noticed," she said, her smile widening just a fraction. "That's the portrait of the tour guide, as they call it. It's a tradition. The first one to have their picture taken here gets to guide the new arrivals. But you're early. You haven't been with us for a full day yet." "Guide," I croaked. "Of course," she said, gesturing toward the staircase. "To the next tour. You're the new caretaker now, dear. Follow me." I didn't move. She sighed, a sound of mild disappointment. "We all have to take our turn, honey. It's a very big house and it needs looking after. You don't want it to fall into disrepair, do you? The pines would creep in, the paint would peel, the guests would stop coming." She said the last part with a sadness that chilled me more than any threat. She walked toward the stairs, not checking to see if I followed. And in that moment, I realized I didn't have a choice. The house had me. I wasn't a visitor. I was a fixture. I left my car there. Or the thing that looks like my car. I walk the halls now, filling the hours that don't pass. The rocking chair in the Rose room is always moving, waiting for the next guest. Sometimes, when the light is just right, I can see the forest outside, a flicker of green and brown before it's swallowed by the void again. I haven't signed the book. I can't bring myself to. Because I know what my comment would be. "Beautiful home. I've never felt so at peace. I cannot wait to return." The worst part is, it's true. There's a peace here in the stillness, a heaviness that settles your bones and quiets your mind. The house is beautiful in its silent, patient way, and I can't wait for the next visitor to arrive. I've seen them on the road, their cars idling, their curiosity piqued. I stand at the upstairs window, the one in the Rose room, and I watch them hesitate. I think about the warped logic of this place, how every guest becomes a host, how every host becomes a prisoner. I think about the photograph on the wall, the one from 1932 that looks exactly like the one from last week. I think about the caretaker, the man with the pit eyes. I never saw his face in the photo, only his silhouette. But as I watch a young couple get out of their car and walk toward the porch, I catch my reflection in the glass of the window. My shadow stretches long and lean into the room, and for just a second I see two empty black pits where my eyes should be. It's almost time for the tour. I have to remember to smile, so they feel welcome.